Hey, welcome back to the Jarnagin podcast. Today I talked to Micah Haworth. Micah is currently working on a few hotel syndications. That's the term. The simplest way I could try to put it is he gathers investors and then buys up hotels and then sends them checks that they like to see, and he does all the work. His story is really cool. He got dropped from his job back in 2020 and then got into real estate, bought a single-family home, worked his way into buying an apartment building, and then now is working on hotels. I really needed this podcast because I'm going to have to get into real estate here soon, more of a side thing, but it was good to get my terms all up to snuff. Before we get going, I'd just like to plug my newsletter. I talk about what I'm up to each week, what content I've been posting, and kind of what my insights are and what I've been working on and what you could apply in your life as well. If that's something that would interest you, go to isaacjarnagin.com/newsletter and sign up. Let's get into it. Hey, Micah, how we doing?
Good, Isaac. How you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, you were just big trip today, huh?
Yeah, I went up to the hotel. We had our holiday party.
Gotcha. And yeah, just tell me about your whole process. You obviously, maintain ownership kind of that hotel, but not really, but kind of.
Yeah. So I do maintain ownership of it. So the term is syndicate.
Right.
So essentially what I do is I start a company and I sell shares of it to passive investors. So that way people can have passive ownership of real estate property without having to do any of the work.
Gotcha. Syndicate. And obviously I've known you since, I was definitely a little kid, and this is very far away from what you were doing back then. So just tell me about your whole process. I've never really heard it full on.
Yeah, so about the syndicate or how I got into syndicating.
Yeah, how you got into syndicating.
Well, it started in 2020 when I lost my job. So essentially, you knew me when I was into film production.
Yes.
So I ended up going from film into live event lighting. So I did a lot of film lighting, and then I went into live event lighting for like concerts and stuff like that. Obviously, that didn't do too good during COVID.
Yeah.
And so... And so I ended up losing my job when a company that I was working with at the time downsized. And so that kind of threw me for a loop of like wanting to diversify my income stream. So I'm not having all my income coming from one source. And that got me into investing, into real estate. And so near the end of 2020, I bought myself a house. And then over the course of like a year and a half, I flipped the house and then I sold it, bought another house, renovated that one. I ended up refinancing out of that one. And at that point in time, I'd really gotten into multifamily investing or wanting to do multifamily investing. And so I used part of that, part of the refinance to put a down payment on a apartment building. Which funny enough is actually the one down the street from the high school that we both went to.
Really? So that's the one you own? I'm like, I see you every once in a while on Facebook and recently followed you, and I'm like, that looks familiar. Like, it looks dead alike of the one we went to. So
Exactly one.
Okay, so that's awesome.
So I ended up buying that one, which is kind of crazy that my first multifamily property is in the town that I grew up in.
Right.
That's what happened. And so that was like the first step in that whole multifamily journey. And I was essentially after that, I was able to syndicate. So essentially, I ran out of money. Don't have any more money left. But I have all this tribe. I at that point had underwritten over 146 different properties. So getting really, really good at looking at the numbers of multifamily properties. So it's like, okay, at this point in time, what do I do? Do I just completely stop, or do I find other people who also want to invest in real estate and they have money but they don't have time?
Right.
And so that's where the marriage comes. What I always tell people is that there are all three components to any real estate deal. There's the money, the deal, and the hustle. So all you need to do is find which one of those three you can bring to the table to be a part of a real estate transaction. And so for me, I have the hustle and I find the deals. And so I find people to bring in the money.
Gotcha. Talk to me about, you said you've written up or reviewed 146 deals. What causes that? Why do you need to do so much research into those kind of multifamily units, and what caused you to rep it out that much?
Yeah, it took me about a year to do that many.
Okay.
Because when I first started, it was like I was doing it part-time, and then in October of 2022, I had quit my job and did it full-time, so that by March, I closed on that first 12 unit.
Okay. The 12 unit in our hometown.
Yeah, in Panora.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I was talking to my brother Aaron about, Mike would be a good person to talk to because he's kind of bought everything you'd want in real estate, a single family, a multifamily, and then, getting into hotels too. So talk to me about like what you dislike, and why.
Yeah. So I like the larger stuff, and because honestly, it's easier. And so it's like right now, obviously, I don't like the hard part about it is that it's expensive. And so the way I approach it is I partner up. And so it's like when you buy real estate's a great investment overall. You got the 4 wealth generators of real estate. So in my mind, that's appreciation. So the property going up in value, depreciation. That means all your tax write-offs. There's loan pay down because your tenant's paying your loan down. So you're getting closer and closer to owning the property outright. And then you have cash flow, which that's typically the one thing most people think about when they think about real estate, but that's only one of the 4.
Right.
So you have that with pretty much any real estate asset you buy. You have it with single family, you have it with apartments, you have it with hotels. The advantage you have when you go to hotels is that you have more security, because if one random tenant decides to peace out and leave in a 12 unit, you still have 11 other tenants. Versus in a single family house, one tenant could just make your entire property 100% vacant, and now you have no income coming in, and you have to fork it over yourself. So it essentially gives enough buffer so things can still go wrong, and you can still cash flow. The term is commonly used. It's called economy of scale. So you have the economy of scale. So essentially everything is kind of cheaper. So imagine negotiating with a contractor when you have 12 units versus if you only have 1. So you have some more, that kind of goes across the board where you have this bargaining power. And additionally, like when you hire a management company, for example, so I don't live in Fenway anymore. I live in Minneapolis. And so I'm about 5 hours away from that 12 unit. And so what we do is we hire a management company to manage it for us. And for a management fee for a property of that size is 8% of gross revenue, versus if I was just managing a single family house and I hired someone to manage it for me, it would be about 10%. So they give you a discount because they're getting more bang for their buck, essentially.
Right. In every aspect. So you were talking about like, if you needed new cabinets in each 12-year units, they're going to be like, oh, there's 12 units of this. Like, this is good money. We'll give you a discount kind of thing. And same thing with the management fee. You said how much? 25% on a single family or something?
10. So
10%, 2%, but any percent's a big deal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I definitely like the economy of scale. And then there's also one huge difference in the evaluation between houses and commercial real estate, which is defined as 5 units or more. And that's that commercial real estate is evaluated based upon how much money it makes. So that means if I don't have to renovate it, if I simply operate it better so it profits more, then it's worth more money. Simple as that. And so there's a multiplier. It's called a cap rate. And the best way to describe a cap rate is it's the going rate of an income stream. It's a multiple applied to the net operating income.
Right.
And so if I make the property worth more by simply if I raise rents, or if I save on expenses or whatever it is so that I'm netting more profit, the property is worth more money.
Yeah. Remind me of the 3 steps to a real estate transaction, or what it takes to run real estate.
Yeah. So the 3 steps to any real estate deal, the 3 parts of any real estate deal is the deal, the money, and the hustle. So the deal is you have to find the property. You need a property to buy. And so some people will just provide the deal by they'll wholesale. They'll go cold calling, find a property that they can get under contract at a discount, and they'll sell the contract to somebody else. So that's someone who's just dealing with the deal itself.
Right.
Then you have people who will bring the money in. So people who are willing to offer on the money. Part of the money is also the net worth. So, when you buy a rental property or when you buy commercial real estate, you need to have the net worth equivalent of the purchase price of the property. So, I don't have a huge net worth right now. It's definitely going up, but it's not millions. And so if I buy a property that's worth millions, I need to find somebody who's willing to help sign on the loan. The term is a key principle. So someone who has a balance sheet and all they do is they sign on the loan, they trust you to run the property on their behalf, and then you can buy a property that you don't have the net worth for because they're willing to help you take the risk.
Yeah.
And then there's the work, because it is a crap ton of work.
Yeah.
So the deal that I make with my investors is that I will do all the work. All you will get is a check in the mail and monthly updates. And I will handle everything else.
Okay.
And that's what I'm willing to do.
So you were able to manage all three with the single home or the single unit family homes, right? And then also, you were able to dabble into that multifamily. But once you got there, you're like, okay, shoot, I don't have management over through these three steps anymore. So you moved into syndication.
Yep. So syndication is, so the only difference between a syndication and like a normal LLC partnership is that syndication, I'm simply letting the government know that I have passive owners. And so essentially you have to register with the Securities and Exchange Commission of the government, which is the part of the government that oversees the stock market. So think of it like I register myself with the people who oversee the stock market, that I'm selling passive shares. Now, the huge benefit that my investors get, so essentially they just own passive shares of an LLC, is that they get to have all those wealth generators of real estate without having to do any of the work. Whereas traditionally, if you just have a normal LLC, you have to have all the members who own it need to be active in the business. They're not allowed to be passive.
Okay.
So
the first time I heard that term was actually through you. So thank you for throwing me knowledge at me. So it's a rare type of, it's not a business formation, or is it? Is it? So you kind of relate it to an LLC a little bit, but it's way different, obviously.
All it is, it's an LLC that you register with the Securities and Exchange Commission.
So just an extra step.
Just an extra step. It costs extra money because you have to hire a securities attorney. So it costs like an extra $10,000. But then if you do so, then you're a syndicate. Now, there's certain rules you have to follow, like only certain types of people. There's restrictions on the type of people who are allowed to be a part of it. So there's essentially two types of syndications. So there's a 506B syndication and a 506C syndication, which is like, okay, now we're getting all this complex crap where the government's trying to tell us what to do with our own money. This is stupid. But it's like, essentially the best way to think about it is B for buddy. So 506B is that you can have friends and family, people who are not accredited investors, invest in your deals, as long as they are, the term is sophisticated, or just know that they can tell whether or not it's going to be a good investment for them. So you can't go steal from grandma who doesn't know what's going on. You have to invest from somebody, have someone invest with you that has their bearings about them. And then it has to be someone with a pre-existing relationship. But then there's the C syndication, which I think of C for accredited. Accredited investor is a identification that's a government definition. Accredited investor means that they have a net worth of $1 million or more, or they've made $250,000 a year for the past 2 years, and they expect to make that in the next year. So it's like, okay, this is a very, very sophisticated person, a very, very experienced person who has a lot of money coming in the door. It's like, okay, so if we're in the 506C, it's like if I have that syndication allows me to publicly advertise. With the buddy syndication, I can't publicly advertise. Everyone who's a part of the deal, I have to have known them beforehand. And then I have to text them and be like, hey, I got this deal. You want to be a part of it? I can't post it on Facebook until after I've closed on the deal, which is what you've seen.
Right. And so how do you get that C classification? Do you have to like prove yourself as a B, or you just pay more?
How do I make a 506C syndication?
Yes.
It's just a declaration on the syndication docs. So when you have it up for you, that's all I do is I tell my lawyer, hey, I'm going to do a syndication for this property. We're raising $1 million and it's going to be worth this much, and we're going to do a 506B. That's what he puts it together for me. Like it's pretty simple. Now obviously like buying the property and finding the property and managing the property, there's a lot of complexities, but I don't consider myself an absolute genius. I think I've done a lot of hard work. But it's the way I describe it is not complicated, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, you've put your reps in, I mean, that's just what it takes with every single field.
Reps.
I want to know how long have you had your eyes on real estate, putting yourself even while you're in the film jobs or whatever, maybe even in high school, like how long have you kind of had your eyes on, like, I know I need to get into this?
Yeah, I've always had my eyes on real estate. So my grandfather invested in a lot of real estate. Now, when I first approached him about learning about getting into real estate, I asked him a couple basic real estate questions. He told me, he's like, why are you asking me these questions? Go read a book. It's in a book. That was his response, which honestly, I'm grateful for it because it forced me to teach myself, educate myself, be the one who's teaching myself how to learn, so that way there's nothing, even after my grandfather's gone, I'm still able to continue to learn in whatever avenue I go down. So essentially, he invested in a lot of commercial real estate and residential real estate. He did a really good job. And so I always saw that. And I also know my grandfather came from nothing. So my grandfather, he went into the military. He came out of the military and started working as a store clerk. And he ended up doing really well for himself, partially because of real estate and partially because of business. And so that was something I always like, stocks and stuff, this is kind of confusing, but, buying a house, fixing up the house, and renting it out, this sounds like this is not, this is something I can do. I can wrap my head around that. And so essentially when COVID hit, I was like, you know what, like my job, failed me essentially, I wasn't able to keep that up. And so it's like, okay, well, I need to find another way to make money and to be stable so that nothing can shake me. And that's when I thought back on real estate. I'm like, okay, I need to go try this again. So I started reading a bunch of books. I read like 50 books in the course of like a year and a half, all on real estate, business, and stuff like that. I keep a lot of them right here. I only keep stuff on this bookshelf of the books I've read. And I read a lot of audiobooks too. But yeah, dude, so I essentially, in 2020, that's when I really started going ham on it. I started educating myself, and then end of 2020 is when I bought the first house. And then it took me about a year and a half because I did all the work myself, and I sold it for a profit and paid off all my wife and I's student loans in one go.
Right. So that your first house is sold and paid. I mean, it paid everything off, like your debts. Wow.
I profited a lot. It worked out really well, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the year helped too. 2020. Buying it in 2020.
I got stupid lucky, man.
Yeah.
And I totally recognize that. But I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, I did this. I fixed up the house, and I just took all my evening. I was working a full-time job, and sometimes I'd work 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week on the full-time job, and then I'd still have to go home and renovate the house and work on it here, paint it here, put some flooring down here, there. So it's like it took me a little bit, and took me a year and a half to do that first deal. And then, that was the first repetition of like, okay, this is something I could do. And then I took the next step, did the second house, was able to do it again. I didn't profit as much on the second house, to be completely honest. But then I was able to get my money back, and that's when I went multifamily.
Okay. And did you and your wife live in a house before you bought that first house to flip?
Oh yeah, you rented a house. Yeah.
Oh, you rent a house. So no ownership before that first sale.
Correct.
Okay. And then
first house never bought.
And then this is something I just haven't looked into. So it's I'm 20 years old, or 21 now. I turned 21 yesterday. Look at that. Yeah. Did you have any sort of business formation when you were buying those first houses? That's something I've had questions about.
So I had an LLC, but I honestly didn't use it. So I bought both of those houses in my own name, my personal name. And the good reason to do that is that you can buy a house with 5% down using an FHA loan. That's a great advancement that we only have here in America. It's not common. And so I think, Americans should definitely take advantage of it when they can. Is that, if it's your first house even, I think you can do like 3.5% or whatever, but we did 5% down. And then that allows us to, come into the deal with less money. But then if you do the work of renovating the house, you increase the value of it, you sell it, you're still netting out more in the end. So it's a minimal investment or comparison. It's still, a decent amount of money, but a minimal investment, and then you're still able to net a great return.
Yeah. I've been, doing social media work for a few businesses, and one of them's a realtor. And I'm like, as I was younger, I'm like, why is first time home buyer come up so much? And I come to find out there's a lot of benefits to never having ownership before of a house. So I see why people don't do that under an LLC, and it protects you. Like, one thing is like, well, all right, an LLC, that's your assets that can essentially be taken away from you if something goes astray. So when you have those separated, if something goes wrong, it's kind of nice there too. But
well, at this point in time, I own several LLCs. So each apartment building has its own LLC, and then the hotel has its own LLC.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So I theoretically own 3 companies now, and then I have an LLC that represents myself. Call it Haworth LLC. And that owns my ownership in the other 3 buildings. So each building has an LLC. So Panora Apartment LLC, and then Haworth LLC owns it.
Mm-hmm.
So my name's still in the paperwork there, but the ownership of the property is now in that entity. So if something were to happen and it to explode, it limits the liability.
Right.
Which is why it's called a limited liability company.
Yes. One of the things I notice is structuring your businesses is truly an art that I just love. Yeah. I love watching people go through their pyramids of how their businesses are structured. How did you kind of come about all that? Was that reading books, or is that just a really good relationship with a really good lawyer?
Lawyers, man.
Yeah.
Lawyers and CPAs are your best friends when you're getting into more business, more real estate, because they give you a lot of great advice on letting you know on what you can and can't do. And they even give you good strategic advice. I have a great relationship with my lawyer, and we're friends now. We call each other and give each other shit. And he will give me advice on how to structure the business or different things that I'm currently not taking advantage of that I could. And it's up to me to kind of take it where I can, and help that inform my strategy moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So obviously CPAs, you can kind of, get on a retainer each month to help you kind of structure out your stuff. How does a lawyer work? Is that similar? I haven't had quite enough capital to be like, I want to actively work with a lawyer, but how does that process work? How does that relationship build work?
Yeah. So I don't have either of them on retainer. It's when I need consulting, I will call them and I'll tell them to start the clock, and they'll essentially time it, and they'll bill me for the time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Dang, man. So you no longer own any of your single families. You still own the multi-family.
I live in that second one. So the second
you live in the second one. Okay.
Yep, that's what I'm sitting in right now. So instead of selling it, I just refinanced. I got a second mortgage, and that allowed me to pull the equity out of the house without selling the house, and then I used that to buy an apartment building.
Right. Dang.
No.
And then syndication. Why did you take that jump?
So I read a book. It's called Financial Freedom with Real Estate by Michael Blog. And that book is all about syndications and really talking about, think of it whenever you get really mad about these big funds like BlackRock or whatever, I see syndications as the antithesis to that. It's using a similar legal structure, but what it is that we're managing investments on people's behalf. So now instead of, a bunch of rich people owning an apartment building, it is a bunch of investors pooling their money together. A bunch of normal people, people that are investing in my deals. Some of them are real estate investors, and some of them are normal people. They all have normal jobs. They're not multi-millionaires. They were just able to, save up some money, and we're even investing with people's IRAs as well. IRAs and 401ks, you can get self-directed account and direct it into investing into our real estate deals, and then you own a real estate asset.
And you say you're responsible for kind of notifying them what's happening each month. What does that look like? Is it like a newsletter, or is it more official than that, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's like an email, essentially. That's the best way to say it. And a newsletter is a great format to say. Essentially, it's several hundred words long. I include pictures, and then in quarterly increments, I'll include financials. So we're actually just about to send out the 2023 Q4 financials to all of our investors. It's one of the things we're working on right now.
And I notice you're very active on, posting clips on different social medias. Are other people kind of in your similar stage? Do a lot of people do that where you're at? Or is that kind of an approach you're just like, hey, I kind of have the basic skills on like posting and, making stuff look good. Like, I'll just do it.
Yeah, part of it comes from my background. I used to do film and live events. I have some colored lights and whatnot. It's like I know the basics of film production. So that was definitely a strong point that I noticed I have, and I'm like, I'm uniquely situated to take advantage of this without having to hire a whole team. People are like, well, I just don't understand how to edit videos and stuff. I'm like, I've been editing videos since I was 13 years old. I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And then another part of it. So to answer your question, some other people in my niche do that for sure. But I would say not all of them do it on the platforms that I do it on, especially when it comes to specifically syndication. A lot of them are a lot more professionals, we're like financial professionals in one way or another. And so they mainly hit up LinkedIn, which I also do. All the content you see on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, I also post on LinkedIn. I'll use different captions and stuff to try to have it more, professional or LinkedIn-esque. That way it just fits the platform better. But yeah, I hit up Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and Facebook.
Okay. And Facebook's genius because I feel like that's where you can get into kind of the more people that aren't looking for those deals. Like some people are looking for them and some people just kind of stumble upon it. Like you're talking about your more average daily humans.
No, well, like the demographics of Facebook tend a lot older than the other platforms. LinkedIn and Facebook are both kind of in that same ballpark where it's older people as well. And, the longer you're alive, the more time you have to collect money.
Right.
And then on top of that, Facebook is a platform I've been on since I was a kid. And so I have a larger network on Facebook, and I have people who have known me for longer on Facebook. And so is it easier for me to raise money from someone I just met or someone I've known for a decade?
Known for a decade. Very much easier.
And so that's, you'll see that I've just recently kind of started posting again on Facebook. Whereas if you look on my other social media platforms, I've been posting on there for much longer about this specific content. And that's because I kind of recently came to that I recently came to that realization that, these are people that I've known for longer. I can probably work on those relationships more and just see, like, essentially it's like I put the content out there so people who are interested can just put their hand up.
Yeah.
I don't need to go banging on your door. I don't need to go PMing everybody. I put out my content. People see it. If they're interested, they'll just reach out like you did. They'll just, it works out.
Yeah. Yeah. And has the kind of ratio between people that are looking for those investments and people that are regular, has that kind of surprised you on who's interested at all?
Well, I've had people that I would have never reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, whatever, and I just would have never thought that they'd be interested, and they just reach out. Like, you're an example. Like, I would have never thought to reach out to you, talk about real estate or whatever, but it's one of those things where I put it out there, and whoever it is, it's like, when you throw a rock into a pack of wolves, the one that yelps is the one who's been hit. So I throw the message out, and the person who's hit by it and is ready to move on it, they're the person who reaches out. And so I end up interacting with more of what I would call a warm lead. Mm-hmm. So someone who's seen my content for a while, and then they reach out like, hey, you know what, man, I'd love to chat. More than welcome. Let's talk. I have a Calendly link, and I will schedule an appointment. I have a 30-minute Zoom call with anybody. Completely open. And I'll talk about real estate in general. Because I think real estate is an amazing asset class. Everybody needs to invest in real estate in varying degrees. There's 1,000 different ways to do it. Like, you can buy farmland, you could buy a single family house, you can buy an Airbnb. There's 1,000 different ways you can invest in real estate. So find the one that fits the way that you want to live and go for it. It's a great way because we need to be more of a country of owners, not a country of renters. Mm-hmm. Freaking a lot of these idiots in politics, a lot of these idiots are really pushing everyone to be a complete society of renters where we will own nothing and we will be happy. And I completely reject that. We need to be a society of owners, and that's how we increase wealth.
Right. Right. Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. So something I know eventually I need to get into real estate. Obviously, building up my net worth a little bit before I look into that. I've always kind of thought like I'm afraid to get into it. I mean, not afraid. I know I'm going to get into it, learn a lot of lessons right away, and then regret how I started. Do you agree with that at all? Or do you think, there's a pathway for everyone and it's going to be different for everyone?
The first thing you need to do when you get into real estate is educate yourself.
Right.
Read every single book you can read, listen to every single podcast you can listen to. Because what education will do is it will give you options, which will then lead to a direction. Because you can't just like go walk in and just go buy a random house. Because honestly, what if the foundation's all fucked up and it ends up costing you $30,000 just to keep it not falling into the ground? There are legitimate risks, and you need to be aware of those risks. And so the best thing you can do is educate yourself as much as possible. But then at some point, you need to stop and you need to take a step forward. 95% of millionaires made their first $1 million in real estate. So it's not necessarily going to be the get rich fast method, but it will be the get rich for sure method.
Right.
You make consistent effort over a period of time, it will result in positive success.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing for me is, I've kind of gone off on a beaten path a little bit. So usually I've just been able to do, and then I learn, and then you kind of find out from there. But with real estate, it's hard because you have to throw quite a bit of money at it. So if you do and then learn, it's like kind of like, oh shoot. So yeah, it is important to read that. Now, with that being said, I'm not a reader. I could do audiobooks. What do you suggest? What are your favorite books,
Audiobooks, 100%.
Yeah.
So you can do, Brandon Turner has a book. It's called Rental Property Investing, or the book on rental property investing. That's a great one that gives you just a great insight into real estate. There's another one I would recommend for you. It's called Set for Life by Scott Trench. That one's, I think of it like, have you read the Financial Freedom from Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey's stuff? I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. I see a Set for Life as like the Dave Ramsey 2.0, where it really also takes into account, the investing and not necessarily having to go 100% cash when you buy your first rental property. Those are all things I highly recommend. And then you could read the book that I read. It's called Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing by Michael Blanc. That one talks about apartments and talks about specifically syndicating. Not that I recommend you jump right into syndicating. I think you should your feet wet on some of your own deals first before you get other people to give you their money.
Seems legit. Yeah, I would never even try to jump right into syndicating. Sounds like you want to know something first.
There's also another great book you might be interested in. It's called The House Hacking Strategy. So it essentially talks about the idea of renting out rooms in the house that you live in, or you could buy a duplex and rent out a unit while living in it. The nice thing with those strategies is that it gives you a very hands-on approach, and it makes it harder to fail, because part of it is that you're paying your own mortgage, but then you also get all the other people to help you pay your mortgage, but then you're also like right there with them. So it's harder to miss things if people are like trying to screw you over or whatever when you're living next door.
Right. So would you say kind of your books were your mentor a little bit, getting into real estate? Because that's another thing I've looked into is like, video, you can kind of find, what I'm involved in is you can kind of find mentors. It's like, all you got to look for is cool projects, and you can ask them a question, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
But with real estate, it's like, you don't want to be listening to people that only have a property or two. Like, you want to be listening to the people that have made it, millionaires, tens of millions. So you used books to get people that have, very nice portfolios to talk to you in a way, or at least they, sold you a book.
I also, I did end up paying. So Michael Blanc, he has a mentorship program.
Okay.
So I actually ended up paying a mentor to teach me. So that year after I had bought that second single family house, between a year before that I ended up closing on that first apartment building, I'd actually bought a mentorship program and I met with a mentor who had 350 units every other week, and he taught me, and I asked questions, and he would answer the questions. I would show him deals that I was looking at, and he would give me feedback. That was a very invaluable experience. It's not necessarily some of the knowledge, because you can download the knowledge just, by watching videos or whatever, but it was almost like the validation of having that confidence of like, you know what, this seems weird, but I also know nothing about this industry. So is it weird? And he would be like, no, actually, you're right. This is weird. It helps give me the validation and the confidence to act, with conviction for it, and that was definitely helpful. And that's where I got my repetition in, where I underwrote 146 deals before I bought that first apartment building. And so those were all deals that I passed by my mentor, and he gave me a lot of advice. So that was definitely very helpful.
Yeah, so you did it in that 1 year, and you had the mentor that whole year. Do you still have that mentor, or are you pretty confident in just where you're at?
I don't have the mentor anymore that I pay, but I definitely I've developed relationships with other people in the industry that I call on. Yeah, like I have a couple friends of mine who one of them owns 400 or 500 units, and I will text them sometimes.
One sec here. I do that about once an episode. I just slap that thing.
It just pops right out.
Yeah.
Those are the Bose, or what are they?
These are Sonys. I splurged for no reason, but hey, they're nice. They're cool.
It's all
whatever.
It's all good. Yeah, man. I've actually been considering starting a podcast as well. Which I don't know. I've thought about different takes I could do on it, but essentially one of the key reasons is it gives people an opportunity to get to know me, because I essentially can spend time with people at scale.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, so because I do all these, you see all the clips and stuff that I post. I go on. That's why I was like down. You asked me, hey, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, down. Let's go.
I knew you'd be down. Depending on what you post, I'm like, oh yeah, of course this guy.
Yeah, of course. He's looking at on podcast. Yeah, and the big thing is that I take this. I have Opus AI. I clip it, and it gives me free content that takes minimal effort. We sit down for an hour. I'll screw around on Opus for a couple hours, and then I'll export all the videos. I put them in a drive, and then once a day, I'll just throw them on social media.
Yeah. And, even if it gets 0 views, hit or miss or whatever, but most of the time, if you just talk to the podcast person, you kind of form a relationship with them too, in a way, Now I have your number, kind of stuff like that. And you'll find out with every single host,
Yeah, well, then there's also the opportunity of, that's why I'm talking about my own podcast, where I have guests on. So I can reach out to somebody who I would never have a reason to reach out to, that I now can, because I want them to come on my podcast. They come on my podcast, we talk for an hour, we develop a relationship, and then maybe that spurs on the opportunity to work together.
Yeah. It gives you a reason to reach out to them. I mean, podcasts are they're a little saturated now, but still, if someone asks you to be on a podcast, it's still like, oh, cool, nice,
Yeah.
I bet you still feel that just a little bit,
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, I don't, podcasts have become very saturated, but they are still projected, like all the online content and specifically podcasts are still projected to increase by over 30%. Right, in the next several years. And so there's still room in that market for people to come in. And what people are noticing is that podcasts have now gotten to the point where people have the ability to completely niche down into whatever they want. And so people can decide what specific content in the specific tint, the specific format, the specific color that they like, and they can have something that is 100% them.
Yeah.
And so there's still a lot of ways to go. I have a couple ideas of ways that I could go about it and bring more of myself, and essentially give people more of an opportunity to get to know me. And then the whole content strategy goes is that, right now the way I set up my funnel is that it starts with social media and me going to networking events. And then I'll post a bunch of that sort of stuff, and that will get people to know me. And then at that point, they can either join my newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter that I send out, or they could follow me on social media, and then they can get to know me over a long period of time. And then when I have deal opportunities come out, I can send it out to my newsletter list of people that I have vet and verified. But with the whole podcast format, because right now the way people get to know me is on my newsletter. But if I have the clips and I have a podcast that people can then go listen to where they spend an hour with me, then they really get to know me. They get to know, I'll make all about, they get to know my hopes and aspirations. They'll get to know my opinion on a lot of stupid stuff, but essentially they'll just get to hang out with me and really get to know me and feel that they have a connection with me through there, which, I put it out there because I want people to connect.
It gives two options to get to know you too. I mean, if you're a reader, you're going to love that newsletter. You're not going to watch the podcast, vice versa, or if you like both, they'll be double connected with you,
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's great. And there's always a reason you should have a social funnel. I mean, I have a hard time finding a reason why you shouldn't have a little social funnel going, especially in this time, that's why I'm so heavy on it, and I'm not even niched down too much, which makes it hard to grow. But when you do, you get those really, really nice connections. I'm a huge fan of it. And I'm glad you're using it for your business type. I mean, it's working. It looks good.
Yeah, trying my best, man.
Yeah.
I'm making slow progress. I'm continuing to refine things over time. And so I'm very excited with what I've done so far, and I'm excited for what it can be.
Yeah, highly recommend making some sort of podcast, even if you don't post the full thing, which, I mean, if you record it, why not post the full thing? Some people are uneasy about that. I don't know why you should, but post once a week. You'll get 7 to 14 clips. You post those daily. That gets exhausting. You get a social media manager for like $300-$400, whatever, just to post your stuff. I mean, it's not too bad, and it's a great way to get yourself out there. How long have you been kind of really doing that? I mean, I've only seen a few of your posts, so I haven't been there the whole way. I'm kind of fake.
Yeah, I think, and the reason you haven't seen a lot of them is because I just recently started doing Facebook,
Okay.
and which is why I'm like, what, I need to hit Facebook up again, because that's where the people I currently know are on, and that's how they're connected with me. Not everyone is friends with me on Instagram or whatever, and especially the older people who are friends with me are definitely not on Instagram. But I think I've been doing it consistently for like 4 or 5 months now. It's been a little bit, because at first I started once a week, and then I started doing more. I started getting on podcasts and doing more clips, and that allowed me to do it 3 times a week. And just this last week, I've now changed to doing it every single day. So I'll do 1 post a day, every single day. And then I also increase the consistency of my newsletter. So now I do that 3 times a week. And then I also do articles on my website, which help with SEO rankings and things like that.
So what are you currently working toward? Like right now, today, you're like, what am I actively working toward?
Yeah. So I'm going to buy 2 more hotels this year. And so we have a couple we're looking at right now. I'm just going to start putting the word out for that. I'm always looking at raising more money and connecting with more people to do more deals. And also I'm starting a property management company. So, I've got a lot of the, I'm going to do as passive as possible, and I'm going to, hire property management. I'm going to be completely, remote and not have to do anything. But honestly, like I've gotten really into being active in the businesses that I'm a part of, and I've started to love it even more and more. So with the hotel, we're active managers. We don't have a property management company. Everyone's on our payroll, and they work directly for us. And so for my property in Panora and the Des Moines market, I'm now going to be starting a property management company in the Des Moines market to manage my portfolio.
Okay.
And
so you're
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You're going to start one in Des Moines, and you also are starting one in, so would that be 2, or is it 2 different locations, or how are you looking at doing that?
I have a hospitality management company that I already run.
Okay.
And then we have a property management company in the Des Moines market that will also manage my own portfolio out there.
So say goodbye to the 8% here soon. It's back to you.
Yep, exactly. Well, that's part of it too, is that I care more because it's my own portfolio, but then it allows me to be connected with people out in that Des Moines market, because I'll be the client, they'll be my clients and I'll serve them. I think there's currently a big need in the Des Moines market for solid property management companies. And that's the need that I'm looking to fill. Which actually, funny enough, my partner on the apartment building in Panora is Garrett DeYoung.
Okay.
From who we both went to high school with.
Yeah.
He was I don't know, he was like on the wrestling team or whatever, but essentially he has his own construction company. And so we're partnering together on that property management company. And so he's going to do the maintenance and handle that whole side of things. And I'm going to handle all the leasing and administration side of things. So it's interesting connection.
Right.
But,
right.
Yep. It's fun. I'm super excited about it.
And were you close with him, or you wouldn't have talked to him without this opportunity, or kind of a thought?
We reconnected our 5-year class reunion because we were both into real estate.
Yeah.
And then we just stayed in touch. We were texting and whatnot. And then this opportunity came up, the 12 unit, and we ended up working together on it because it needed a lot of renovation. It was in bad shape.
Right.
It had a certain reputation around town, which you probably heard a little bit of.
Yeah.
And so the whole goal is to turn the whole thing around. And so we've renovated half the units at this point. We're right now renovating all the hallways and stuff, all new carpet, repaint the hallways, patch and paint, new trim, all that sort of stuff, make it look really, really nice. And then essentially because of that big renovation need, I partnered with Garrett in order to help me do the work on that. So yeah, he runs that whole renovation portion because that's what he does.
Yeah. Not that you're doing it for the reputation, but that's got to be good for you and Garrett. It's like, hey, two guys that were here come back to town and they're flipping out a space that, kind of has a sketchy reputation and, some unfortunate stuff's happened in there.
I'm obviously very active on social media, so people know that, like people who are friends with me, know. I know, like Kevin McClatchy, like commented on one of my posts that he recognized the apartment building or whatever. So it's like yeah, people know. But I don't really. My goal is not for like necessarily people in Panora to necessarily know me for that.
No,
because part of it is I want to maintain an piece of professionalism between the relationship with me and my tenants. I want it to be a very professional relationship. I don't want someone texting my phone number or trying to contact my family because they wanted a discount on rent or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be a little more professional in that regard. But
yeah, no kidding. I got a nitpicky question. So when you go into the two syndications again, is that 2 more LLCs?
Yep.
Okay, and then it's
each one has an LLC.
And then it's under Hawthorne, right? Is that kind of what your syndications are under, or who owns? Like, where does Hawthorne fit in?
So Hawthorne, you're referring to the entity that I personally own that you could say represents me.
That represents you. Okay.
Yep. So yes. So any of my ownership of those properties is held by Hawthorne. Just go straight to that one. Yep.
Right.
And we'll probably be making an entity that's essentially Northern Lights Hospitality LLC that is essentially just a management company that has the exclusive contract to all the hotels.
Okay.
And so essentially the management fees or whatever that we charge go straight to that entity, but that entity doesn't actually own the any of the hotels.
Okay. So Northern Lights is your management side.
Yep. Oh, Northern Lights is the management company, and you could call it the syndication company as well. That's at least how we brand it. But technically, it doesn't own any of the hotels.
Right. Oh, wow. And so today you were just doing a what kind of party?
We're just having a holiday party.
A little holiday party.
Hey, thanks. Give people gift cards and stuff, just things like that. It was just morale and and thanking our staff for the hard work they're putting in on the property and being a good boss.
Yeah. Dang, man. Wow, that is crazy. Yeah. One last thing that I kind of want to go on is you lost your job in 2020, correct?
Yep.
You weren't quite ready to go full time because you weren't in it at all. And then you just started to get it. So you got another job. When did you know that you could do it full time? Real estate.
The full time jump was a leap of faith.
Okay.
So I didn't have money coming in. Essentially, and honestly, at this point, I still don't have. We just started getting consistent money from the hotel, but everything I bought are all long-term buy and hold.
Mm.
So the strategy that my wife and I essentially partner together, where I work on our future and she works on our present.
Mm.
And so she has a job and we simply live off of her income, and that allows all the money we make in our properties to be reinvested into the properties. So like, the 12 unit in Panora is doing well. It makes money every single month. We're great. That's fantastic. And so then we just turn around and we, go buy new washing machines, or we go and, recarpet the hallways, things like that. We're focused on the the longevity of these properties, and that they're going to increase in value over time. Same thing with the hotel, where all of this stuff is, we come up with like 1 to 5 year plans for every single property. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, it starts in this current state, and we're going to apply these renovations to it, and then it's going to be worth this much and cash flow this much. Mm. And so since I bought everything within 6 months of each other, everything still has like a long way to go to like really be amazing assets, which like they all already are. We bought them at great value, but they're going to be fantastic. And I'm super excited about that, but I don't want to be put in a position where I have to be pulling equity out of it, though I definitely want to get paid.
Right.
And so, which is kind of one of the nice things with the syndication front, is that I can treat that really just like that's my job. That's my full-time job, where I am focused on this. We charge a management fee so that we do get paid from it, but we kind of have it kind of fixed so that we're able to put a consistent effort into it and not get distracted by other things.
Yeah, you're holding it because you can in your situation. I mean, if you needed to pull something, you could, but it'd take away from the what you could put back into it. I totally get that.
Yeah. Well,
totally.
It allowed me to, in the last year, so in 2023, I bought $5.5 million worth of real estate. Mm-hmm. But, I only own $500,000 worth of it because we, give the ownership away, or our investors buy it from us. Mm-hmm. So we sell it to them and they give us the money. We use it to put the down payment on the property and renovate the property. And so I give away part of the ownership of the property, but it allows us to scale beyond what I would have normally been able to. Mm-hmm. But if I decide not to. Mm-hmm. And then it also allows me to put my full-time effort into it. So now people get the benefit of the experience that I've gained from, executing on these plans that we put together.
Mm-hmm. Why go full-time into real estate? In my life, I'm like, I have similar skills to what you had. And I'll always think of real estate as a passive thing. And I want to switch that a little bit, but you took the dive into real estate. Was it mostly just passion, or are you like, I could do this? I don't know.
It's 100% passion. Because you shouldn't jump into real estate just so that you can be rich.
Oh no.
You should jump into real estate because you really love the game.
Yeah.
It's an amazing game. It's an amazing thing where it's like, if I work my butt off, I'm going to get the reward. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, I have ownership of this, and so, and there's, call it part of it stubborn too. I love the idea of being my own boss, which it's also a joke because now I have all these investors, which essentially I have to report to. So it's like, the idea of being your own boss is kind of funny because then all your customers are your boss, but I still am able to set on my own hours and participate in whatever I want to participate in.
Yeah.
And so that's something I really enjoy. Like, for example, with this hotel, it started out after a couple months of owning it, our general manager quit. And so I drove up and I ran the hotel for 2 months while we found and trained in a new general manager. And so essentially I took the time to run it, to get to know it, to systematize it and optimize it. So it started from being chaotic to being boring because I was able to systematize it so much and run it so smoothly. And then I handed that off to our new general manager, and now I stepped away from it. So I just drove up today to visit it to have a holiday party, but I'm not required for the daily operations.
Mm-hmm. A hidden blessing probably that the person left.
Well,
is kind of
to go buy more.
Yes.
It allows me to continue to scale, and then the skills, tools, and resources that I develop by scaling to different properties, I can then bring back to that one property. And I can share resources across them, which allows for that economy of scale that we talked about earlier.
Right. So are you going to be doing, I don't even know if this is the syndications, like is that the whole process combined?
Yeah.
So are you going to be doing that until you're just able to not have investors and do it yourself, or what's the long term play?
Yeah,
I love it. Okay, cool.
Syndication is my job. I love the job, and I'm super passionate about it. But the goal is, I continue to syndicate and continue to do this, and each of the syndications have about a 5-year hold on them minimum. And then at the 5-year point, we either refinance or we sell. And at that point, you get a cash out of my portion of it. And I give all the investors their return back. Everyone's happy. We did what we set out to do. And then we move on to the next venture. And then the goal for me is that I do that so many times that I'm able to then just turn around and do exactly what I've been doing over the last 5 years, buying hotels, except I just buy my own hotel. And then also buy apartments, so that's part of, you're talking about long-term strategy, part of the reason why I'm starting a management company in Des Moines, because I want to buy property in Des Moines. I'm going to buy more apartments in Des Moines. I'm not a fan of residential real estate in Minneapolis, the market, because Minnesota and St. Paul are very, be honest, they're very liberal. The liberal policies just completely are screwing over the entire market right now. On top of that, St. Paul has already enacted rent control, and Minneapolis is talking about doing rent control, all of which is just making it completely ridiculous to manage property there because the government wants to run it for you. And they expect you to give the units to the tenants for free, essentially. It's just stupid stuff. And so I've really focused more on Des Moines as a market to invest in residential real estate, and so that's something with the management company. I'm setting that up so that when I buy property in Des Moines, that it can be managed by my own company. Yeah. And on top of that, the company produces cash flow, which I can then use to buy more real estate.
I'm not proud of my lack of political knowledge, but one thing that I definitely noticed is even left-leaning people or liberal-leaning people buy real estate in right-leaning states. Yep.
Yeah. Prices don't lie.
Yeah. So to kind of close, I was expected to go in of like, oh, here's what I should, Micah's advice on what I should do for my first move. I was like, maybe he'll tell me to buy, a single or whoever you tell. But you said read books, and I think that's the perfect answer. I think it's a great answer.
Read books, man. The first step for people, because at some point you need to stop reading and you need to take action.
Right.
There's a common thing. It's called analysis paralysis. Because you're not going to be able to find the exact perfect, first step. No one does. But because when I bought that single family house, I anticipated I was actually planning on holding it as a rental, and then I anticipated it like providing me, like when I did my calculations, like 5% return, which is like barely worth the effort. Because people talking about wanting 10% cash on cash return because the stock market does like 7%. But I was like, you know what? I just need to take the step and do it and get into real estate just so I can get that first deal done and really start being an active real estate investor. And so I honestly took a step where I knew I wasn't going to be making an incredible cash on cash return. I knew it was a good deal, wasn't just an incredible deal. And so I just took a step like, screw it. Ended up turning out really, really well for me. But, at some point you're going to need to just take that first step. And sometimes it may not be like, it might not kill it, but if you take that first step, the education you get from actively being involved and making those decisions, that is going to benefit you in the long run. So read and set a timeline for yourself, 6 months. Okay, in 6 months, I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to go do something. Whether that's going to be buy a single family house. Like honestly, with your age, dude, if you just save us some money, buy a single family house, and rent out the bedrooms to your friends, real estate investing. And you know what that's going to do is that's going to mitigate your housing expense. Most of the time, if you rent out the bedrooms to some buddies of yours, you're going to mitigate your housing expense. So now you don't have to pay rent because all your friends are paying your mortgage for you. And then now you have more money to then save up again to go possibly buy another house.
Yeah, I think
there's a lot of great ways to do it, dude.
Yeah, anyone who just saves their money and goes out of the way to make a little bit, by the time you're 20, you're almost there to be able to just do that right away. I mean, you are there. Like I could do that right now if I needed to. But I think that's really cool. Dang.
Read the House Hacking Strategy. Great book. And then Set for Life's a good one. And then rental property, the book on rental property investing.
Yeah. Yeah, my unique problem is, usually people are afraid to take action. They want to read, they want to get perfect knowledge. Mine is actually the opposite. I just want to go in because I know how fast I'll learn. But also, just like with real estate, a mistake can be a little more than just something you can recover from easily. But
yeah, and that's true, dude. But there's also a lot to be said of just taking action.
There is.
People if you take action, twice as or 5 times as much as some of these other people who want to find the exact perfect scenario, and you fail twice as much, you're still, ending up ahead.
Yeah.
2.5 times ahead. Taking action is what matters.
Yeah.
But you need to have some direction. I highly recommend reading the books I recommended. I highly recommend continue like Bigger Pockets podcasts, other things like that, where you're really just delving into it and thinking like an investor, and go crazy, man.
Yeah. Dude, I appreciate you coming on. This is like one of the more just like we talked about exactly what we need to talk about, much of a learning process. I'm going to be jumping into having a few entities here soon, just like splitting up businesses just a little bit. So even just hearing about how yours is pyramided out knows me how to ask those questions. So I appreciate that so much.
No problem.
Yeah, but take her easy, keep it up, stay in touch. Yeah. Thank you, man.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
Have a good one.